Winter is not quite over, and in this video, we are looking at winter's next move, and we start looking down from the North Pole. This is a look at the stratosphere. We're looking at some warming that's taking place way high in the northern latitudes. Okay, we're looking up towards the North Pole at this point. Down here is the United States. I know it may be tough to look at from your screen, but over here is Siberia, and over here is Europe. Look how the warming is taking place in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Okay, you start to see this around the North Pole. Generally, you start to see more cold air build in. Now, I understand it's March. It's not going to be as cold as January. But when I look at this, when I look at what's happening in the upper levels too, it tells me we could be looking at a cold period once we get into March. And it may not come until the middle of the month. That's super long range. Here's where we are right now. Kind of warm in the west. I think that's going to happen. But we've got quite a bit of cold air building up across parts of Canada still. Look how everything is upset across the Arctic right now. Big ridge happening here, displacing all the cold air into Alaska, into the Northwest Territories. It's pretty darn cold up here right now, and it's going to stay that way heading into next week. The question is, too, heading into next week, do we get some overrunning moisture in the lower 48 to bring some more wintry precipitation into parts of the mid-Atlantic? Well, the European is not nearly as aggressive as the GFS. We'll look at that in just a second. But I do want to show you sort of how that strat warm may end up impacting the upper atmosphere. It could put some cold air back into the southwest. That looks a lot different. I don't know. To me, that seems a little far west. I think this is going to be just a touch further to the east. That's just me. It's all my opinion. But either way, that looks pretty cold. And does it end up in the west? Does it end up in the east? I think it's too early to tell, but the odds are increasing that we see some below normal temperatures somewhere into the States as we head into March. Now, I know that sounds like it's out there, but the point is we are definitely seeing that strat warm, which textbook tells me it's going to start to turn cold somewhere. Let's talk about the snow chances heading into next week. All right, here's where the snow chances, at least of seeing more than 3 inches on the European Ensemble through Sunday. Not much outside of, look at this, the Canadian Rockies, we might see some snow. Otherwise, not a lot going on into parts of Canada, but look heading into next week. Notice this blob starting to show up here from Minnesota all the way down to Missouri, points east into the northeast. That will be part of what the European isn't showing, but the GFS is. We're going to look at both of them right now. Let's start off with the short term with the GFS as we head into Thursday. I think it's a little cold on the northern side here with this weak system moving through parts of West Virginia, but there could be some snow mixing in through the early and mid part of the day here. South of that, just rain showers across the southeast. Otherwise, quiet across the west. We've got a decent ridge here across the southwest, keeping temperatures warm, and this is going to move off the east coast. I don't know that we get any snow out of this. The European says, yeah, good luck. Check it out. It's really not much happening. So very little, if any, fanfare with this system as it moves away, and then we start to see another shot of some colder air moving into the northeast. We are watching this system as it slides across the prairies. It'll bring some light snow across parts of Canada. It's going to move toward the Great Lakes. It's going to likely skip north of the Great Lakes into parts of Ontario, eventually Quebec, and move out to sea. But it'll drop some light snow with it. It'll also drag a cold front through, dropping temperatures back down across the northern tier. High pressure dropping in. Friends, this is the key player we're going to be watching next week. This is a dense area of air, very cold. It's going to start to move south as we head toward Saturday. Out ahead of it, there could be some snow heading into Sunday as this weak wave moves along the front. And then my question has always been Sunday into Monday, also into Tuesday of next week. Are we looking at a large-scale, overrunning winter precipitation type event as everything starts to set up, as this cold Arctic air sits to the north, it gets reinforced, and we set the stage for a wintry event? Okay, this is what the GFS is showing. Snow breaking out from Nebraska, ice from Kansas City, south into parts of central Missouri. North of that, snow. Northern Missouri over into Indiana and Illinois. This is for Sunday. It's Wednesday. We are starting to close the gap, folks, here in the time frame. So now we start to pay attention. I say I'm shopping for a winter storm now. I think we do. I think we're on the alert here to watch this time period for some weather that could impact things heading Sunday into Monday across a widespread region. This is a decent area of high pressure, continuing to reinforce that cold air. On the southern side, there will be mixing issues with this type of setup. What you do not see is a large load. This is not the type of event that brings a huge storm and wraps things up. It's just not that type of setup. You're getting that overrunning precipitation, and this could bring some problems to the Ohio Valley, possibly the Mid-Atlantic. And look, this could bring 4, 5, 6 inches of snow. In some cases, 8 to 10, I think, at this point. It's still early to talk about totals, but that looks pretty impressive. Let's go over to the European. We'll look at the newest run of it. I'll take you back to the midday run, and at least it'll take us into next week. Once we get into the weekend, everything kind of lining up. There comes the high dropping to the south. Now it's in place on Sunday. Here comes the moisture starting to ride up and over it, and look where the placement is. Very similar to what we just looked at on the GFS. However, there's a key difference. It's not nearly as strong with the overrunning moisture, but you still see a couple of waves of wintry precipitation. And if I had to tell you where the best chance would be, it would likely be into the mid-Atlantic. Okay, this doesn't look very strong, right? Let me go back to the map I showed you at the beginning. It was this map, right? This is the Ensemble guidance, which uses more than 50 members of the European. So that one run of the European I showed you, not as aggressive. There are some that are kind of aggressive. So when you flatten everything out and take the averages, you're starting to see the chances grow here of seeing more than 3 inches of snow. Okay? A lot of time before we get there. Here are the chances for more than 6 inches. It's not even really showing up yet. So at this point, it doesn't look like a super strong storm. Something, though, that I think we have to watch in the coming days, and I'll be tracking it. I'm Travis. If you're brand new, I studied meteorology at Mississippi State. I also worked in TV as a chief meteorologist. So come back, subscribe. We'll follow it together. Beyond this, what happens? Hey, listen, I think it's going to warm up once we get toward the middle and the end of next week. The European is on board with this, and hey, my gracious, it could get really warm. You talk about spring fever, rain, showers. Are we starting to get severe weather underway? I don't know. Watch this time period once we get toward the 6th and the 7th. Not much snow. This is the official forecast from the National Weather Service. Very little, if any. So even the GFS, again, I showed you guys, I think it's a little too aggressive on the snow. National Weather Service calling the bluff, saying, not much, very little, if any. But look at this. So this would be what the GFS is printing through Tuesday. Again, the GFS is trying to show a little bit of snow, but look what it does. My gracious. That's the late afternoon run. This would be the run that ran during the middle of the day, and some of that snow stretching back towards the central part of the country. We'll be watching this closely, as I think this is all going to change up as we head into the weekend with new data coming in. And there will be some snow across the Pacific Northwest and the highest elevations of the Cascades, but up into British Columbia, along the border of Alberta and British Columbia, up along the Continental Divide, some decent snow. And some of this tries to work east of the mountains into Edmonton, into Calgary. There could be some snow here. I don't know how far out of the prairies it makes it, but some of that tries to also move down into parts of Montana as we head into next week. So still a long way to go before we get there, and very little snow falling across the Rockies at this point. There could be a little bit trying to move in by next week, but you can see not much really happening out here as this ridge holds tight. A look at your temperatures really quickly. Tomorrow, starting to warm up some in the northeast. We'll start to melt some of that snow as we head into Friday. Temperatures across the south really get warm. We see temperatures near Chicago push into the 60s, or at least very close to 60. And then here comes the cold as we move into Sunday, or Saturday rather. It really starts to drop into the Great Lakes. Pretty warm south of the front, though. You talk about warm 70s across the Carolinas. We may get close to 80 in parts of the deep south heading into Sunday. But there comes the cold. Man, Monday morning could be quite chilly into parts of the Northeast with well below zero temperatures. That is cold for March standards. Across the central U.S., another warm day on the way for Thursday afternoon. Will be well up into the 50s and 60s, even up into Montana into the 60s. 30s and 20s across Minnesota. We get a little bit warmer, I think, as we head into Friday, as we get close to 40. But there comes the cold, making its nose seen at first across northern Minnesota, and then it starts to push south as we head into Saturday, into Sunday. Look at Texas, though, into the 90s. So some really warm air across the deep south and also into Texas. And then it stays warm here, too, heading into Sunday, also into Monday. Monday, my gracious, West Texas could get into the 90s, low 90s anyway, trying to show up with a strong late February and early March sun. And there's a look at your temperatures across the West, where it's staying relatively mild. All right, that's all I got for the video here today, guys. There's more to come, so make sure you subscribe. Come back. See you next time.